Imagine this. One day you just disappeared. No warnings, no explanations, no hints left behind for them to follow. You didn't slowly fade. You vanished completely, like you were never part of their world at all. And as you walk away, a quiet thought lingers in your mind. Did they ever truly appreciate you? Or were you simply another certainty they treated like air, essential, yet invisible? You were the steady presence they always assumed would be there, the one who understood, who forgave, who stayed. And because you were always available, always unwavering, they grew comfortable, complacent. They convinced themselves they could offer you the bare minimum and you would still remain. But here's the unshakable truth. When you finally choose to walk away, not in anger, but in peace, it disrupts everything they believed. It shatters the illusion they had about control, about entitlement, about how easily they thought they could take your loyalty for granted. In your absence, they are forced to confront a reality they never imagined, a life without you, a life missing the quiet strength, the unwavering loyalty, the rare light you once brought without asking for anything in return. And so begins the real story, not the story of your disappearance, but the story of your rise. The story of how your silence will say more than any confrontation ever could. The story of how you reclaim your peace without ever needing to explain why. And as they struggle with the void you leave behind, you continue forward, stronger, clearer, rooted in your own unwavering worth. If this message resonates with you, remember to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Welcome to Stoic Station, where strength is quiet, peace is powerful, and your worth is non-negotiable. Now, let's begin. 1. The Sting of Rejection. When you choose to disappear without warning, it sends a ripple through their world, a shock they never anticipated. At first, they pretend it doesn't affect them. They tell themselves it's nothing, that your absence is just another minor inconvenience in their day. But deep beneath the surface, the sting settles in. It isn't the kind of sting that burns loudly or fades quickly. It's the kind that embeds itself quietly, a slow realization that something irreplaceable has slipped through their fingers. The truth is, they never thought you would be the one to leave. In their mind, you were always steady, always available, the unwavering presence they could lean on without ever offering the same energy in return. Your reliability became their comfort. Your loyalty became their entitlement. They mistook your patience for permanence, your kindness for a given, and somewhere along the way, they began to treat your heart as something they were entitled to, not something they needed to earn. But when you disappeared, truly disappeared, it shattered that illusion. You didn't leave with anger. You didn't leave in bitterness or in a storm of final words. No, your departure was quiet, dignified, almost surgical in its precision. And because it was so silent, so resolute, it carried a far deeper weight than any confrontation ever could. That silence said everything they refused to hear when you were still present. It spoke of self-respect, of boundaries, of the final recognition that you were no longer willing to be someone's afterthought. This is the sting they feel, not just the loss of your presence, but the sudden realization that they were never as irreplaceable to you as they assumed. For the first time, they are experiencing what it's like to be unchosen by someone who once genuinely cared. They are feeling the absence of a love that was never loud, but always steadfast. A love that now has withdrawn completely and without negotiation. And make no mistake, your disappearance doesn't just remove you from their daily life. It removes their access to the energy, the compassion, and the understanding they took for granted. It leaves behind an empty space they don't know how to fill, because deep down, they know it wasn't just anyone who left. It was someone who mattered, someone whose loyalty was rare, whose forgiveness was abundant, and whose heart was authentic. Your silence reveals a powerful truth they were unwilling to face, that your worth was never and will never be tied to their recognition. Your value does not rise or fall based on their acknowledgement. In walking away, you didn't devalue yourself. You honored yourself. You didn't abandon love. You chose self-love over self-sacrifice. You didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because you finally started caring about yourself. That is why the sting lingers. That is why it cuts deeper with time instead of fading. Because the loss of someone who loves purely and gives selflessly is not something that life offers many chances to experience twice. They know it. Even if pride keeps them from saying it aloud, even if stubbornness makes them act indifferent, they know it every time they sit in the quiet moments where your absence is too loud to ignore. In the end, the sting of rejection they feel is not because you disappeared out of spite. It's because you disappeared with grace. It's because your love was real, and when real love withdraws itself, it leaves behind a silence that echoes louder than any goodbye. And perhaps that is the deepest pain of all, the knowledge that you left not because you wanted to hurt them, but because you finally chose to heal yourself. 2. The emptiness of missing you. When you disappear, you don't just leave a gap in their schedule. You create an emptiness in their life that echoes louder with each passing day. At first, they may convince themselves it's manageable, that they can fill the space with new routines, casual conversations, or temporary distractions. But soon, reality sets in. The noise of the world cannot drown out the absence of something genuine. The small moments they once overlooked, the sound of your laughter, the warmth in your voice, the quiet understanding between words, begin to haunt them. What they miss isn't just your presence, it's the way your energy transformed ordinary moments into something memorable, the comfort you provided without asking for anything in return, the way you made even silence feel full. Without you, life feels thinner, more brittle, lacking a depth they didn't realize you were providing all along. It's not something they can replace with another face, another conversation, another night out. Because what they miss isn't generic, it's uniquely you. In the emptiness you leave behind, they are forced to confront the weight of your absence. It's not just about missing someone to talk to, it's about missing the safety, the acceptance, the quiet strength that came from simply knowing you were there. They realized that they didn't just lose a companion, they lost a sanctuary, someone who made them feel grounded even when everything else was chaos. The most profound thing about this emptiness is that it creeps up on them slowly. It doesn't crash like a wave, it seeps in like a fog, settling into every corner of their life. One day they laugh and instinctively look around for you to share the moment, and you're not there. One night they feel the weight of the world and reach for a familiar comfort and find only silence. That's when it hits them. You were never just another person passing through. You were the calm in their storm, the warmth in their winter, the invisible thread holding parts of their world together without them even knowing. And as the emptiness grows, so does the regret, because they understand now, too late, that presence is not a guarantee, that the people who bring light into your life are not obligated to stay when they are taken for granted. They feel the ache of your absence not because you were loud or demanding, but because you were quietly essential. Like air, unnoticed until it's missing. You, in your patience, in your kindness, became a part of their foundation. And when you walked away, it wasn't just the end of a relationship or a connection. It was the quiet dismantling of a safety net they thought would never disappear. In the emptiness of missing you, they come face to face with the cost of their complacency. They understand, maybe for the first time, that true connection is rare and fragile, that not everyone is replaceable, and most importantly, they realize that your absence is not a punishment, It's a consequence. The truth is, you never needed to make them pay. You never needed to prove your worth. Your worth was proven every day you stayed, every time you gave, every moment you stood quietly by their side. And now, your worth is proven in your absence, in the emptiness that no one else can fill. You were never just someone to pass the time with. You were the space where they could be seen, understood, and accepted. And now, in losing you, they are left with a hollow reminder of what they once had, and what they will never so easily find again. 3. The growing curiosity. When you stop reaching out, when your name no longer lights up their notifications, and your presence no longer fills the spaces between moments, curiosity becomes their silent and relentless companion. At first, it's subtle, a passing thought, a fleeting question about where you are and what you might be doing. But as the silence stretches on, those small questions grow into an overwhelming hunger for answers they can no longer find. They wonder where you've gone, who you're spending your time with, whether you even think of them at all anymore. They scroll through old messages, revisiting conversations they once took for granted. They linger over memories they used to brush aside, searching for clues, hoping to piece together the story your silence refuses to tell. They check your online footprints, your photos, your mutual connections, desperately seeking something, anything that can explain your absence. But the silence holds firm. It offers them no clues, no comfort, no closure, and that is when the true weight of your disappearance begins to take root. The mystery of where you are, of who you are becoming without them, becomes more consuming than your presence ever was. Because in that mystery, they are confronted with a terrifying truth. They no longer have access to the most authentic, vibrant parts of you. You are no longer within their reach, no longer available for casual conversation or empty reassurances. You have stepped into a life that exists outside their control, outside their assumptions, outside the role they once assigned you, and that realization unsettles them more deeply than they are willing to admit. They begin to understand, in slow, painful waves, that mystery isn't created by mere physical distance. It's created when a person chooses to live fully, unapologetically, without seeking permission or approval. When you live beyond their expectations, when you stop explaining yourself or making yourself visible for their convenience, you become something they cannot predict, cannot categorize, cannot touch. Your silence isn't passive, it is powerful. It is a living testament to the fact that you have reclaimed your energy, your focus, and your freedom. Every unanswered question, every unreturned glance into the past reminds them that they are no longer entitled to know you. They are no longer part of the life you are building, and they have no idea what chapter you're writing now without them. In the growing curiosity, they feel not just a loss of connection, but a loss of certainty. The comfort of believing they understood you, of believing they had a place in your story, dissolves. They are left with nothing but speculation and longing, while you move forward, anchored in your own wholeness. Mystery isn't created by distance. It's created by living fully without seeking permission. And now, you are the mystery they cannot solve, the presence they cannot replace, the story they no longer get to be part of. And that, more than anything, is what keeps them awake at night. 4. The self-reflection. In the stillness you leave behind, something powerful begins to unfold. With no more distractions to shield them, no more easy excuses to hide behind, they are forced to sit alone with themselves. There are no conversations to divert their attention, no comforting patterns to lull them into believing everything is fine. There is only silence, and within that silence, the unavoidable presence of their own choices. At first, they may try to push it away, to numb themselves with busyness, with noise, with fleeting distractions. But true reflection is persistent. It creeps into the quiet moments, into the spaces between breaths, and demands to be heard. They start to ask questions they never dared to face before. Was I selfish? Did I take them for granted? Why didn't I see their worth when I had the chance? Each question cuts deeper than the last, pulling apart the false narratives they built to protect themselves. They are no longer able to dismiss your absence as a phase or a temporary rebellion. Instead, they are confronted with the reality that you were offering something rare, something real, and they mishandled it. They realize you were not asking for too much. You were simply asking to be seen, to be valued, to be chosen without conditions. For some, this reflection remains a passing discomfort, a brief sting they will quickly cover up with rationalizations. But for others, it roots itself deeper, becoming a haunting regret they cannot easily escape. They begin to recognize not just what they lost, but who they failed to be when they had the chance. You were the mirror they refused to look into while you were present, offering them a chance to rise, to grow, to become better. Now that mirror stands empty, and all they are left with is the reflection of the person they were when they didn't choose you. This is the profound pain of real loss. It does not just strip away comfort, it strips away illusions. It exposes the gap between who they thought they were and who they actually chose to be. Sometimes losing someone teaches us the lessons we refused to learn when they were standing right in front of us. And you, by choosing yourself, have become the catalyst for a growth they may not have otherwise faced. But remember, their reflection is not your burden. Their regret is not your responsibility. You did not walk away to teach them a lesson. You walked away because you refused to diminish your own light any longer. Their self-reflection is a consequence of your choice to honor your worth, not an invitation for you to return and make things easier for them. In the end, the stillness you left behind becomes a crucible. It forces them to sit with their mistakes, to understand the depth of what they lost, and to reckon with the truth that genuine connection is not owed, it is earned, and once lost, it is not so easily regained. 5. The urge to pursue you. There comes a moment when silence transforms from confusion into longing, when the absence you created becomes too vast to ignore. In the beginning, they might have convinced themselves they were unaffected. They believed they had the upper hand, that you would eventually circle back like you always did. But as time stretches on without a word from you, that belief crumbles. What begins as curiosity soon intensifies into something deeper, more primal, the undeniable urge to pursue you. They start replaying conversations, rereading old messages, searching for moments where they might have missed the signs. They wonder if perhaps they underestimated your ability to walk away, to choose yourself over their inconsistency. It rattles them because they never considered that you could become a chapter that doesn't beg to be reopened. And now, the silence they once took as a tactic feels permanent, and permanence is terrifying. The urge to reach out grows stronger with each passing day. It's not just about missing the conversations or the comfort you provided. It's about missing the way they felt when they were in your presence, the way you made them feel valued, heard, understood. They realize now that it wasn't attention they craved. It was the quiet dignity of being seen through your eyes. And without it, their world feels colder, emptier. They might start with small gestures, a casual text, a reaction to an old photo, an unexpected message at a strange hour. Anything to reopen the line of communication, to test if the door they so carelessly let close is still unlocked. They may even escalate, showing up places they know you frequent, reaching out through mutual friends, weaving themselves back into spaces you've carefully reclaimed as your own. They do this not because they suddenly evolved, but because they feel the void you left, and they fear it may never be filled again. But here is the important truth. By the time the urge to pursue you ignites within them, you have already changed. You are no longer standing where they left you. You are no longer the same person hoping to be chosen. You have evolved, grown, redefined your standards. The version of you they now seek is not someone waiting. It's someone walking steadily toward a fuller, freer life. And so, while they chase, desperate to reclaim what they lost, it's no longer about you validating their worth. It's about them confronting their own failure to recognize yours when it mattered most. You don't have to do anything to provoke this pursuit. Your absence, your silence, and your unwavering focus on your own journey do all the work for you. In the end, the urge to pursue you is not about their love maturing. It's about their fear of being left behind. It's about their sudden realization that loyalty, kindness, and presence are not infinite resources. They were gifts you gave freely until you realized they were not being honored. And now, in the growing distance, they understand. You are no longer someone they can casually reach out to. You are someone they must reach upward to meet, and that climb for many proves too steep. 6. The conflict between relief and regret. There's often a brief and deceptive moment after you walk away when they feel an unexpected sense of relief. They breathe easier, convinced they have reclaimed their freedom. No more expectations, no more responsibilities, no more facing the mirror of your presence that gently asked them to rise higher. For a fleeting while, that space feels exhilarating, a sudden rush of independence they mistake for clarity. They tell themselves they needed this, that they are better off unburdened. But true freedom without meaning quickly begins to unravel. As the days stretch on, that sense of liberation, once so intoxicating, begins to thin out. The thrill wears off, replaced slowly and then all at once by something heavier. The spaces that once felt open now feel empty. The silence that once seemed like peace now rings hollow. And within that growing hollowness, regret creeps in, slow and merciless, like an unwelcome guest settling into a house left abandoned for too long. They realize too late that space didn't bring them the clarity they expected. It didn't reveal a better life waiting just beyond your reach. Instead, it exposed something far more uncomfortable: their failure to appreciate what was rare, steady, and real. It wasn't freedom they found, it was absence. And the absence revealed the gravity of what they so carelessly dismissed. They begin to understand that what they once labeled as suffocation was, in truth, support. What they once deemed predictable was actually loyalty. What they once overlooked as ordinary was the extraordinary consistency of someone who chose them daily without being asked. But now, with you gone, they see it clearly. Space didn't heal the fractures. It spotlighted the cracks they refused to acknowledge. The regret builds slowly at first, whispering doubts during quiet moments, growing louder each time they try to convince themselves they made the right choice. They remember the way your voice softened storms, the way your presence steadied chaos, the way your patience gave them chance after chance to meet you where you stood. And they realize that in seeking freedom, they didn't escape you, they abandoned themselves. Relief fades fast. Regret endures much longer. That is the fresh and brutal perspective they now must sit with. The temporary high of independence dissolves, but the enduring ache of knowing they lost something irreplaceable only grows with time. Regret becomes a weight they carry in the private corners of their mind, the moments no one else sees, when the distractions fall away, and the reality of your absence settles deep into their bones. And you, having chosen to step away, no longer exist as a question mark in their story. You have become a full stop, a period at the end of a chapter they can no longer rewrite. Their conflict between relief and regret is not your responsibility to soothe. It is the inevitable cost of failing to value something rare while it was still within reach. You offered something real. They sought something easier. Now, they are left to wrestle with the truth that some losses are final, and some lessons only reveal their full weight after it's too late to undo them. 7. The game playing. In the wake of your disappearance, when they realize that the connection they once took for granted is slipping beyond their reach, many don't meet that loss with humility. Instead, they resort to what feels easier, playing games to try to regain control. They post happy pictures, curated carefully to project an image of a life untouched by your absence. They send casual, accidental messages, pretending it was a slip of the hand, a harmless mistake, when in reality every word is chosen, every outreach is calculated to test the waters. Some even flirt openly with others, hoping to catch your attention, to stir a reaction, to ignite some flicker of jealousy that might tether you back to them. But these tactics no longer touch you. They used to. Once you might have wondered who they were smiling for in those pictures, or what they really meant by that offhand message. Once, you might have felt the sting of their public flirtations, the quiet pull of insecurity urging you to chase, to compete, to prove your worth. But not anymore, because you're not playing anymore. You've graduated from the exhausting playground of mixed signals and half-truths into the arena of self-respect and calm clarity. The very foundation that once allowed their games to work, the part of you that needed their validation, has been dismantled. In its place stands someone who no longer craves attention offered in crumbs, someone who understands that real connection doesn't require manipulation or guessing games. Their efforts now, far from pulling you closer, only reveal their own immaturity, their inability to face loss with dignity, their desperation masked beneath forced smiles and shallow performances. Every game they play, every staged post, every feigned accident only magnifies the gap between where they are and where you have chosen to stand. Their insecurity echoes louder in the silence you maintain, because while they scramble for control, you have already found peace. You have already moved beyond the need for small battles. You are no longer interested in proving anything to anyone. And that is the emotional shift they never anticipated. They expected you to react, to chase, to compete for attention you should never have had to earn. But instead, you chose silence, not as a tactic to punish or provoke, but as a new way of living that fiercely protects your peace. Silence is no longer a move in the game. It's a complete exit from it. It's the full embrace of a life where your worth is not determined by who notices you missing or who fights to win you back. Their games expose what they hope to hide, the fear, the regret, the deep, gnawing knowledge that they lost something valuable by treating it as replaceable. Meanwhile, your silence says everything you no longer need to explain. You are done playing. You have nothing to prove. And in that quiet, in that refusal to engage, you win a victory far more profound than anything they could ever offer. 8. The deafening silence. The silence you leave behind becomes heavier than any argument, any carefully chosen goodbye. It is not the kind of silence that fades quietly into the background. It grows louder with each passing day, pressing against the walls of their life with an intensity they never expected. Without your voice, your check-ins, your subtle presence weaving through their world, everything feels thinner, more fragile. What once felt familiar now feels disturbingly hollow. They underestimated the weight of your absence. They thought they could fill the space with noise, with new conversations, with distractions. They believed they could move forward untouched, that your departure would be a temporary disturbance, not a permanent shift. But silence, when it carries real meaning, cannot be drowned out by surface-level noise. It lingers, it reverberates. and it reminds them, moment after moment, that connection is never something to be assumed. It is a gift, one they no longer possess. Every time they reach for their phone and resist the urge to call you, or worse, realize there is no call to answer, the truth tightens around them. They lost something they cannot replicate. No amount of casual friendships, fleeting attention, or public smiles can replace the quiet, unwavering connection you once offered without asking for anything in return. The silence you left behind does not just mark your absence, it marks the irreplaceable presence you once gave so freely. There is no louder sound than the quiet of a heart realizing it no longer has access to what once felt endless. The late nights once shared, the inside jokes, the effortless conversations, all of it now belongs to a closed chapter they cannot reopen, and they begin to understand. The connections that truly matter are not found in moments of convenience, but are nurtured through care, presence, and respect. And when those are neglected, no apology, no sudden burst of effort can erase the void left behind. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to explain or justify or plead to make your worth known. Sometimes the loudest declarations of self-respect are spoken in complete silence. By choosing not to reach back, by refusing to fill the space they so easily allowed to become empty, you say everything you ever needed to say. And they hear it, every day, every moment, in the growing realization that what they thought was permanent was, in fact, precious, fragile, and now lost. This silence is not coldness, it is clarity. It is the refusal to negotiate your value, the quiet honoring of all the love, loyalty, and authenticity you once brought into their life. It is the recognition that you deserve to be valued when you are present, not mourned only in your absence. And while they may wrestle with the deafening echoes of what they lost, you move forward in peace, carrying with you the unshakable truth. You never had to make noise to matter. Sometimes the deepest power lies not in what you say, but in what you refuse to say anymore. 9. The fear of losing you for good. There comes a moment, after the initial relief fades and the distractions no longer hold their power, when a deeper fear begins to set in, a fear far more unsettling than the silence itself. It starts quietly, creeping into the corners of their mind late at night, in moments when they are least guarded. What if you're truly gone? What if the door they so carelessly left swinging open has now closed, not out of anger, but out of finality? At first they try to dismiss it. They tell themselves you'll come back. They convince themselves this is temporary, that people like you don't just disappear forever, but days turn into weeks, and every unanswered message, every empty notification, every silent night chips away at that false sense of security. And slowly, fear tightens its grip, the fear that they have lost you for good. It's a fear rooted not just in missing you, but in realizing that someone else might now be standing where they once stood. That the steady love, the quiet loyalty, the deep understanding you once offered so freely might now belong to someone else, or perhaps, even more unsettling, it belongs solely to yourself now, no longer needing anyone to feel whole. They fear that your laughter is now being shared in rooms they can't enter, that your presence is now a light illuminating paths they can no longer walk beside you. They imagine someone else recognizing the worth they overlooked, someone else cherishing the very things they took for granted, and it eats away at them more profoundly than any words could describe. Because the truth they can no longer escape is this: you're no longer waiting. You're not lingering at the door, hoping they'll realize your value. You've moved forward, not out of bitterness, but out of a deep, necessary respect for yourself. You've stopped holding space for someone who didn't see your worth when it mattered most. This fear is different from regret. Regret mourns the past. Fear trembles over the future, the realization that what was once possible is now slipping beyond reach. And nothing terrifies them more than the thought that the opportunity to stand beside you has been lost forever. The silence they once thought they could wait out now feels endless. The distance they once welcomed now feels insurmountable. Every imagined scenario where they reach out and you no longer answer, where they show up and find no place reserved for them, deepens the fear that they waited too long, took too much, gave too little. And while they wrestle with that fear, you continue to move forward, rooted, strong, and whole. You are not fueled by the need for revenge or validation. You are fueled by the quiet, unwavering belief that true connection honors your presence, not just your absence. The fear of losing you for good is not a punishment you inflict. It's a natural consequence of their failure to see your light when it was shining right in front of them. And now, that light has moved beyond their grasp, not out of cruelty, but out of a love for yourself that refuses to be dimmed. 10. The return on your terms. Eventually, after all the silence, after all the gnawing fear, many try to find their way back to you. They tell themselves it's not too late, that somehow the door they once ignored might still be open. They reach out, sometimes boldly, sometimes hesitantly, testing to see if the place they once occupied in your life still exists. But what they often fail to realize is that time has changed everything. The space they once assumed would be theirs for the taking is no longer vacant, and it certainly is no longer available without effort, without growth, without a genuine reckoning. They come back, but they do not return on the same footing. This time, it's not about you seeking their acceptance, it's about them seeking yours. The dynamic they once took for granted has shifted, and now the ground is no longer tilted in their favor. You no longer view their presence as a prize. You no longer need their attention to validate your worth. You have found something stronger in the spaces they left empty. You have found yourself. When they return, they find someone different. Not colder, not bitter, but clearer, stronger. Someone who knows exactly what they bring to the table and is no longer willing to bargain that value for half-hearted promises. You don't need their apologies or explanations to feel whole. You don't need them to come back to prove you were worth staying for. You already know you were. Their return is not the victory they once imagined it would be. It's not the triumphant moment where they swoop back in and you fall eagerly into their arms. It's the quiet realization that they now must earn what they once expected freely. They now have to confront the reality that your forgiveness, your presence, your time, none of it is guaranteed. You are no longer available for those who treated your loyalty as convenience. You are no longer moved by the surface gestures that once tugged at your heart. The person they are reaching out to is not the one they left behind, waiting, hoping, aching. You have evolved into someone who no longer negotiates your peace for the sake of familiarity. And maybe they sense it, the way you listen differently now, the way you observe without attachment, the way your silence fills the spaces where old emotions once rushed to answer. They realize they can no longer predict your reactions because you no longer react. You respond if you choose to respond at all. The return is on your terms, not theirs. It's a crossroads where you hold the power to decide, not from bitterness, but from clarity. Whether you allow them a place in your new life, or whether you simply wish them well and continue walking forward, the choice belongs entirely to you. Because healing didn't just close the wounds they once inflicted. It rebuilt you. It elevated you. It reminded you that you were never hard to love. You were simply waiting for someone who knew how to value what they found. 11. The validation of your worth. When you choose to disappear, it is never an act of cruelty. It is not a move made out of spite, revenge, or bitterness. It is a declaration, clear, undeniable, that your presence was never meant to be treated as something ordinary. It is a powerful reminder to both yourself and the world that you are not a convenience, not a background presence to be taken for granted. Your existence is a privilege, not a guarantee. Walking away without fanfare, without a dramatic announcement, is perhaps the most dignified way to honor your own worth. Every moment you resist the temptation to explain yourself, every breath you reclaim from the need to prove your value to those who couldn't see it, you are validating yourself in ways that words never could. The silence you maintain, the ground you refuse to give up, becomes louder than any speech, stronger than any plea. It says unmistakably, "I know who I am, and I refuse to shrink to fit into places where I am not fully seen." There is profound power in choosing yourself without seeking permission. It's in the way you protect your peace, not by building walls, but by refusing to water deserts. It's in the way you carry your light forward, not waiting for others to recognize it before you believe in it yourself. You no longer measure your value by how loudly someone misses you or how quickly they notice your absence. Instead, you measure it by the unwavering sense of calm, of strength, of quiet certainty that grows inside you, even when no one is watching. You are not defined by the attention you receive or the apologies you are given too late. You are defined by the life you build in the aftermath, the life where your worth is rooted deep within you, immovable, unshakable. Choosing to walk away is not about proving them wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you were right all along to expect more, to hope for more, to require more. When you disappear, it's not an ending, it's a beginning where you are no longer available for half love, for almost effort, for those who only see your value when they fear losing it. It is the beginning of a chapter where your worth is not up for debate, not hanging in the balance of someone else's recognition. You are not who you are because someone finally woke up and saw you. You are who you are because even when no one applauded, even when no one validated, even when no one came running, you stood strong in your own light. You chose peace over chaos, self-respect over second chances undeserved, freedom over familiarity. And in doing so, you didn't just validate your worth. You elevated it to a place where it can no longer be touched, questioned, or diminished. This is your power. This is your truth. This is your worth, and it has always been enough. Summary. Remember this. When you chose yourself, you did not lose anything. You did not walk away empty-handed or leave something precious behind. What you left was the weight of being misunderstood, the burden of waiting for validation, the exhausting effort of trying to be seen by those who refused to look closely enough. You didn't lose, you gained. You gained clarity, you gained peace. You gained the strength that comes from no longer begging for a seat at a table where you were always meant to be honored. Choosing yourself was not a retreat, it was a rise. You stepped into a life built on self-respect, on truth, on the kind of love that begins within and radiates outward, regardless of who notices or applauds. You no longer live in the shadow of someone else's approval. You live firmly rooted in the light you always carried, the light that was never diminished by someone else's inability to see it. So keep moving forward, with grace, with strength, with an unwavering belief in the quiet, steady worth that has always been yours. You are enough. You were enough in the moments you doubted it. You were enough in the moments they overlooked it. And you are enough now, more fully than ever. You always have been. You always will be. Before you leave, if this message resonates with you, remember to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Here at Stoic Station, we are building a place for strength, for clarity, for those who are ready to own their worth without apology. Your true power has never been in chasing or convincing. It has always been in your quiet ability to walk away, to let go, and to let others feel the weight of losing you. Hold your ground, stand firm in who you are. Whether they return or not no longer defines you. What defines you is the calm strength you now carry, the unwavering truth that you are the prize, and you have always been. You are not waiting for validation. You have already validated yourself in the choices you've made, in the growth you continue to embrace. This journey has brought you back to yourself, stronger and more self-aware than ever before. Let their regret be their lesson, not your burden. You are your own anchor now. Write it, believe it, live it, and as you move forward, carry this truth quietly within you. Your story is yours alone to write.